Hey there, it's BoardGameDave, and today we're taking a look at a game called Harmonies. Now, this is a game that's been blowing up my social media lately, my board game Instagram and the YouTube, and all over the place I've been hearing about this game, but honestly, I didn't know too much about it, but last week, I was at my friendly local game store, Farbo Co. in downtown Lancaster. By the way, a great store you should check out if you're ever in the area, but anyways, I happened to see Harmonies on the table, and I took a quick peek at it, and I was there with some friends, and Hannah thought it looked really cool as well, so I kind of bought it on a whim, which I don't often do. But suffice to say, we've been playing it a ton ever since. So today I wanted to kind of give you some of my thoughts on this game based on the plays that we've had so far. Now, first we're going to start by going to the table. I'm going to give you a quick teach of the game. It is not a very complex game, so it doesn't take very long to teach. And then we'll come back up and I'll give you my whole review of what I think about this game. So let's jump to the table and I'll teach you how to play Harmonies. All right, here we are ready to play some Harmonies, and the goal of the game is to be the player with the most points at the end of the game, of course, and you're going to be getting those points by taking these landscape tokens, placing them in your little biome here, and then grabbing these animal cards and creating these arrangements in your ecosystem to basically attract those animals to that landscape, and you'll represent that by taking cubes from the card and placing them out on your personal board like I'm doing here. So what are you going to do on your turn? Well, you're always going to have to take 3 tokens from that display. So take 3 tokens and you're going to place them on your board. You can also take an animal card from the display if you want to, once per turn. And if you can score animals by removing cubes and placing them out on the board in the corresponding arrangement. So let me show you what that might look like. So on my turn, at any point, like I said, I can draft an animal card. So I'm going to take these foxes here. Okay? And when you draft a card, you're going to place cubes on those spaces, which I already did. Right? And then I can take some of these tiles. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those. I've got a mountain and a building. Now, before I place those, I should show you there are some restrictions as far as what can go where. Now, your tokens can go pretty much anywhere on the board with some stacking restrictions. So these mountain tiles can stack on top of each other to make bigger and bigger mountains, okay? Trees can be built by placing a stump, basically, and either putting leaves on top of that stump or adding another stump and some leaves on top for a really big tree. And then these red ones are buildings. So to build a building, you take a stone or a wood or a building token and then add that another red building token, a roof, on top. So that's some placement restrictions. You can see that I've already built a building over on this board. So anyways, where were we? I've got my tokens and I'm going to place them on my board. Anyway, so let's take a look here. I've got this Arctic fox, which wants yellow and gray in a row like that. Now that can be oriented, rotated, however I want. So if I place this gray here, right, I've completed a yellow and a gray. So that lets me place a cube, right? Remember, you can do this at any point onto my board like so, right? And the card, by the way, I'll move these over for a second. The card shows you, right, where you need to place that token. So I can't just willy-nilly put it on the yellow. It has to be on that farther mountain space, okay? And by doing that, by the way, I just removed these 2 cubes to show you this, but that first cube that goes out scored me 4 points. Now, I'm about to score another one, and then it'll give me 9 points, and then if I do all 3, that'll be 16. So at the end of the game, you'll always score the highest revealed score there, all right? So I did that. I've got 2 more tokens. I'm gonna place this gray one here, right? And now you can see I've got yellow, gray going down like this. That lets me score another fox moving into my environment. And then finally, I've got this red building tile. Now I told you that this can go on top of wood or stone or another red tile. And I'm gonna throw it right here because if you look at these field mice, right, they want a wheat or something, a field, right? And then any kind of building and then another wheat like that in arrangement. So by doing that, right, I can remove one of those tokens and place it right on that red building in the center, right? And that is a demonstration of a turn. We took the tokens, we optionally, right, drew an animal card, and then we scored animals as we went. Now, at the end of the turn, you'll reach into the bag, you're gonna put 3 more tiles out or tokens for the next player, and you're gonna refill that display up to 5 animals. So we'll put this one out. And that's a whole turn, everybody. You're gonna go around and around, taking turns back and forth, or around the table until the end of the game, which is triggered by either the bag being out of tokens, so you can't refill the board, or a player is down to 2 or fewer empty spaces on their board. At that point, you'll finish the round, so everyone has the same number of points, and then you'll go into endgame scoring. Now, one important thing I didn't mention when I talked about the scoring and getting points in this game is beyond getting points for your animals. So let's say, for example, let's say I was this player on the right, okay? And I ended my game and I had fully completed these animal cards. I would get 14 points and 15 points and 12 points. And like I said, these partial ones, you score the highest revealed score. So 9 points for the foxes and 5 points for the mice. And you'll tally that over here on the left-hand column, the right-hand column for each animal. But the left-hand column is showing your landscape scoring. So this is very, very interesting. At the end of the game, your trees will score you points based on how high they are. Your mountains will score you points for how high they are only if they're adjacent to other mountains, right? Your fields, right, by themselves score you no points, but if you have a field of 2 or more adjacent yellow tiles, you score 5 points. Buildings are a little bit more complicated. You're going to look at the colors around each building and see if there's 2 or fewer, that's 0 points. If there's 3 or more, that's 5 points. So my building here, for example, only has gray and yellow around it, so that scores me no points. And finally, you're going to look for your longest river, right, and basically score based on those water tiles. Now, that's scoring at the end of the game. Now, I should introduce a few other concepts. There is a backside to these boards that looks like this. And the only difference is I believe that there's one more space on there, and the arrangement obviously is a little bit different. But also you use the backside of your scoring sheet. And now we're looking for the number of separate islands basically you've made, and each one scores you 5 points. And beyond that, you also have these, I forget what these are called, the animal spirit cards, which every player is going to start with 2. They're going to choose one to keep, and then it gives you your own scoring objectives. So it looks like buildings adjacent to other buildings are going to give you 4 points, or each water tile is going to give you 2 points, or each tree is going to score you additional points. And again, this is in addition to your normal landscape scoring. So those can give you some really big points if you can pull them off, and you'll represent that with a clear color cube. So anyway, that's the gist. Again, on your turn, you draft tokens, you take an animal if you want, you score those animals, round and round to go till the end of the game, you score it, and whoever has the most points from their environment and their animals wins the game. In this case, it was me. So that's how you play Harmonies. All right, so hopefully now you feel like you've got a pretty good understanding of how to play Harmonies. Now, let's take a look at my 7-point criteria for how I review or rate board games, starting with art and components. Now, obviously, the art of this game is a big draw. The table presence is just lovely. The card art, as you already saw, is so playful and vibrant and colorful and fun and whimsical. I just cannot get enough of the art on those cards. I think it's fantastic and lovely. The big chunky wooden components that are screen printed, I believe, are really nice as well, very tactile. The player boards are great. The player aids are really fantastic. Overall, the player or the art and components is fantastic. I have almost no qualms with it. The cards themselves are a tiny bit on the thin side, but beyond that, everything in this box is fantastic quality. I give it a 9.5 for art and components. Next is complexity versus audience. Now, I do think that this game is just about perfectly complex for the audience, the target audience that they're going for. Now, I do wonder if families who see this box and look at the back and look at the art style are going to be surprised that it's a little bit heavier than they think. That's my only worry, because it does have a little bit more thinkiness and meatiness and strategy and sort of that, spatial awareness element of it that, might not appeal or work for the youngest of players. It does say ages, what does it say, 10 and up? Yeah, 10 and up. So again, just based on the box size and the art, you might think it's a bit of a simpler game. It does have a little bit more complexity. Now, that being said, of course, there is that kind of first game or beginner variant as well. So overall, I think the audience and the complexity match very well. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 for complexity versus audience. Third is thematic integration. Now, first of all, let's just be clear. Harmonies is a fairly abstract game. At the end of the day, it's a game about collecting tokens and placing them on your board to match arrangements shown on cards to score points, right? Not terribly thematic, but that being said, I do think that the designers and especially the artist kind of went out of their way to bring the theme into the game to immerse you into the world that you're building here. The color coding of the tokens, for example, right? Knowing that the brown means wood and you can stack them to make a tree, or that the gray are stones you can stack to make a mountain, right? That helps understand the gameplay because of the theme there, right? But more than that, to me, the cards themselves, I think that the way the artist incorporated the pattern that you need to build into the art is so fantastic and really brings out that theme, right? These alligators or crocodiles, they want to live near big trees surrounded by water, right? And that's shown on the card, right? These ladybugs want to be in sort of like a low grasslands around a field, and that's where they thrive. And these snow monkeys, they want to be on kind of medium-sized mountains surrounded by water because they hang out in the hot springs, right? So I love that. And it seems like for most of the cards, if not all of them, the number of animal tokens you place here match the number of animals on the card. I love that small little detail. So it's not terribly thematic, but it does have a little bit or enough of that theme to sort of, bring you into the game. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 for thematic integration. Next is intuitive mechanics. And as I've already mentioned, this is a fairly simple and straightforward game. It's easy to teach. There's not too much to it. And it's all very intuitive. You're going to take animal cards and try to design your biome to attract those animals into your player board, essentially, which is very intuitive. Now, there are some small tweaks, especially as far as the placement of those wooden tokens and the way that you can kind of finagle your turn to score more than one animal at a time, like I showed in the teach. That can be a little counterintuitive, and I have to say, almost every single time, if not every time I've taught this game to new people already, there's always been a moment where a player's been like, oh wait, I didn't mean to do that, or oh wait, I was kind of seeing this one pattern wrong. So there are times when it can be a little bit frustrating because you're like, oh wait, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, which, maybe just as a part of the abstract nature of the, the three-dimensional element of this game. But overall, it's very intuitive. I give it a 9 out of 10 for intuitive mechanics. Fifth is replayability. Now, we have been playing this game a lot, and I would say it certainly is replayable, especially considering you've got those 10 nature spirit cards that are going to give players sort of their own objective to go for, of course, and you also have the B side of the player boards, which gives you a different way to score those rivers. So I always appreciate a game that gives you those extra ways to play the game or extra features to introduce once everyone's comfortable with the base game or the beginner variant. Now, that being said, it's not inherently the most replayable game, as in you're going to see the same animal cards each time. You're going to, basically be trying the same strategies, although, you might pursue the biome scoring more than the animal scoring or try different strategies. But again, at the end of the day, there's not a ton of replayability baked into the gameplay necessarily. So I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10 with the B side, with the animal spirit cards. It is certainly replayable, but not the most replayable game I have in my collection. Sixth is length versus fun factor. Now, I will say that this game can go a little bit long, especially if you're teaching new players or you've got a higher player count. I would say 40 to 45 minutes is not out of the question for this game, which, again, might feel a little bit long, but I will say the game is fun throughout. The game sort of ramps up as you grab more animal cards, and you might be able to pull off really cool combos, like Rachel had 5 animals scored in one turn, for example, and that was early in her game. So as you build out your biomes and connect long rivers and, grab more of those animal cards, like I said, there is a sense of sort of escalation and progression as your biome becomes more efficient at attracting those different animals. And there's that tension, almost like Ticket to Ride, where you see that there's fewer and fewer empty spaces on someone's board. The game's about to end, right? And you're trying to finish those last few things. So there's a nice push and pull, a nice tension there. Again, a bit on the long side perhaps for your first few games, but overall, length and fun factor, I give it a 9 out of 10. And finally, the cost versus value. Now, apparently this is a very hard to get game right now. I'm really glad I saw it in person at my local game store, like I said. That being said, when it's in stock, it's about $35, which honestly seems about right. You're getting some great art, some lovely components, chunky tiles, a very fantastic bag, and more than that, you're getting a game that is really appealing to families, to newer, to casual gamers. It's got a lovely table presence. It's a game where people walk by and go, ooh, what's that game, right? So a fantastic game, a brand new, lovely game is going to go for about $35, which I think is a fair price. It's not terribly cheap, but it's not overly expensive at all. I give it a 9 out of 10 for cost versus value. And there you have it, everybody. Overall, Harmonies gets an average score of 8.86 out of 10, which we're going to go ahead and round up to a 9 out of 10, which I think is a perfect score for a game like this. It's small, it's compact, it's easy to carry around, easy to teach to new gamers. gamers and casual gamers alike. Teach it to your family, teach it to your friends. It's beautiful art. It's a great theme. It's got great table presence, like I said. And besides, not having the strongest thematic tie-in, it's a lovely, absolutely wonderful game. It's not my favorite game of all time, but it's a really solid game that I'm sure will be hitting the table a lot going forward. So overall, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. Harmonies is a great game I can highly recommend to you to check out as soon as you get a chance. So there you go. That's my review of Harmonies. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you like the content, of course, you can always like or subscribe or do any of those things you want to do. If you leave me a comment, I will get back to you for sure. I always like to reach out and respond to every comment I get on my videos. So with that being said, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you had a good time. And in the meantime, I'll see you later. How's it go? In the meantime, have a wonderful week. Take care and happy gaming. Bye. I'm getting rusty.